to the best night of the week. It's Monday night. That means it's time for RfRx. I'll be your host tonight, and I have here with me our wonderful and amazing returning co-host, Rob Palmer. Hey, Rob, how are you doing?
I'm doing just fine. I'm happy to be here. Very happy. Mr. Biddle is joining us this evening.
I am too. I am so excited for this week. I cannot even wait. It's great. It's not even October yet, and we are having our first spooky episode, and I am loving it. So, what have you been up to this week, Rob? Anything exciting?
Well, I got to interview a few more speakers. It was my 10th and 11th interview of the SciCon speakers. Kenny Biddle is speaking at SciCon, and I did him about, I don't know, maybe 6 weeks ago. I started with Neil deGrasse Tyson. You might know him, Penn from Penn and Teller. Then I got to people like Kenny Biddle, a fellow of CSI. And today I did what might be my last one, which was Nathan Lentz, who spoke for RfRx last week, because he's also speaking at SciCon.
Oh, excellent. Yes, he was our guest last week as well.
So I've been doing these little teaser videos, maybe half hour, 40 minutes, just to introduce them and say what they're speaking about at the conference to try to get people interested in signing up. And anyone listening to this can still do that. We'll put the link in there at some point.
Yes, absolutely. Feel free to throw it in there. Excellent. Yeah, we'll bring that up again later too. And in the meanwhile, let's hear from everybody else. We want to hear from all of you fine people in the audience. We're going to go ahead and launch our opening poll for this evening to hear your thoughts on tonight's topic. And I'll go ahead and read the questions off. And so y'all can answer those at your leisure while we do our introduction. So the first question is, have you ever had an experience which you believe to be paranormal? Answer choices are yes, no, or not sure. The second question is, do you believe in ghosts? Answer choices are yes, no, and not sure. And third question, have you ever been on a ghost hunt or some other paranormal investigation? Answers are yes, no, or I saw Mothman, or some other creature. So we'll be looking forward to hearing your results from that. And
do we count supposed alien encounters, extraterrestrials, in that? Can we do that too?
Yes, I think you can count that. If you've had any sort of paranormal encounter, you can count that in our poll, or something that
the thing is, I don't count extraterrestrials as paranormal, because if they're real, they're just part of the natural world we haven't found. So
yeah. Well, wouldn't that be true of Bigfoot as well?
Nah, because that can't be
real. Yeah, well,
you would need a freaking breeding population of tens of thousands, and no one's ever found one little bit of evidence. So no.
Okay, fair enough. I mean, I'm not saying they are real. I'm just saying if they were real, wouldn't that make them real?
Well, that is true, but yeah, there possibly could be aliens, because we know life exists and it could possibly come from it, but no, there's no Bigfoot. Sorry, cryptozoology fans.
Fair enough. Yeah, I recently was in I think it was Colorado Springs, where apparently that's a big Bigfoot sighting location, and they had Bigfoot themed paraphernalia everywhere you went.
If you look at a map, just Google where has Bigfoot, you'll see a map of the United States everywhere.
Man, he gets around. Must be those really big feet. I don't know.
Everywhere.
Okay, I'm going to stop now. Rob, would you like to talk to us about what we're doing here tonight and what is RfRx?
What is this? So yes, this is an RfRx meeting. It's what we call our weekly meetings, where we host guests who discuss topics relevant to the folks in this community, right? It's not a replacement for either the online community or the support groups, and we'll talk about those in a bit. But these talks and presentations aim to provide good information, advice, or coping skills to our clients and community. And if you have any questions or comments and inquiries regarding this, you can send it to rfrx@recoveringfromreligion.org. And we make an effort to record and upload all of these, right? And we're a little behind now, but we have 94. That's a lot. And they're all up on our YouTube channel. And you could find that at the link that was going to put in there. And also the audio versions are transcribed into just an audio file and uploaded to our podcast.
Yes, that is correct. Thank you. And in case anyone is wondering what RFR means, we've used that a few times, that stands for recovering from religion. And that is who we are here. And our mission statement is to offer hope, healing, and support to those who are struggling with issues of doubt and non-belief. And so, Rob, how are we offering hope, healing, and support to the people
Well, I'll
who reach out
start
to
by
us?
mentioning the healing part. This is, initiated by our helpline. We offer 24/7 support via online chats or phone calls from anywhere in the world. Maybe even extraterrestrials can access it. I don't know. You can even schedule a call at a convenient time. And volunteers like me offer empathetic support without judgment or criticism. And we listen to your issues. We suggest appropriate resources. And those, by the way, are also directly available via our great newly redesigned resource page. And the link is in the chat.
Yes, absolutely. Rob,
And
is
the other parts are hope and support. You want to tell us about that?
yes, I do. So, hope is what we offer through basically sharing and listening to personal stories from other people. And the idea behind that is just kind of to get the sense that we are all in this together, even though we've all been on a different journey and we have different experiences and challenges and successes. One way to kind of get that sense of hope and inspiration can sometimes come from hearing about other people's journey and the kinds of things that they've been able to overcome or experience. And so we have a blog and a podcast where we share some of those stories. And I'm going to drop the links to both of those in the chat so you can go to those and check them out and see if there's anything that speaks to you there or, moves your spirit, as it were. I'm joking.
Uh-huh.
It's a tired joke. I make it every week.
Pertinent. It's pertinent here, though.
Yes. So also support. This is something else that we offer in a variety of ways. And the first way that we offer support is through our peer support groups. And those are face-to-face meetings. Now, during COVID, they went virtual for the most part. So they are face-to-face, but online. Some of them, I believe, are transitioning back into having some in-person meetings. But we have more than 60 groups around the world, and we're always looking to form even more. And so most of those are still meeting virtually. So what that means is, even if there's one that's not near you in person, you can still join it. And you can find all of those through Meetup. And I'm going to drop the link here. You can find it through our website or just go straight to that link. And I want to also mention one of our newest support groups that just started a few weeks ago, which is the LGBTQIA+ virtual support group chapter, which is meeting on the third Sunday of every month at 7 p.m. Central. So if that sounds like a group that you would identify with and would like to join, please, by all means, check it out. And we have all sorts of other groups as well. And again, since they are meeting virtually, you don't have to join the one that is nearest to you. You can join one that's halfway across the world from you if that's the time of day or the day of the week that it meets that is best for you. So check them out. There's probably one that is happening at a time that works for you. So if you're interested, come and hang out with us. And what else do we have in terms of support, Rob?
Yeah, if the peer support isn't enough for your needs, and there's a ghost of a chance that therapy might help, you
I
can
see what you
use
did there.
our secular therapy project. So we have 657 plus at this point therapists, and they've supported over 28,000 clients since this program has been active. This allows clients to connect with licensed secular mental health care providers. And these therapists that we vet, they're carefully screened. They don't use religion. They only use a secular therapy. They use scientific evidence-based methods. And of course, they're appropriately licensed in their state and community. So you can find that at the link there. And hopefully you can find some support there. I will say that quite commonly recently, but just, 2 years because of the pandemic, it's hard to get a therapist appointment, no matter what therapist you contact. And just today I had somebody saying, nobody's getting back to me from the secular therapy project. So it's a problem. So if anyone's a therapist out there and wants to volunteer to, add to our numbers there, please do.
Yes, absolutely. That is a great point. We are always looking for more people to help. So thank you for plugging that. It's a great program. And that's not all the support that we offer. We also have our online community, which is an online platform that you can go on to meet people with similar backgrounds as you. And this is not just a public community. You have to actually be vetted by one of our helpline agents first. So if you call or chat into the helpline and speak with one of the agents and talk to them a little bit about it, they'll ask you some questions, see if it sounds like you might be a good fit. And if so, they can plug you into the online community where you can find tons of channels that are geared towards all sorts of different life experiences and groups of people that you might, be able to
they're all text chats, but they're very spirited conversations.
Yes, they are. I see what you did there again, Rob. I'm on to you. I am loving the puns. Yes, please join our ghostly channel. And it is full of people in all sorts of different groups. We've got LGBTQ plus groups. We have secular parenting. We have women only. We have, former JWs, just all sorts of things. So check us out. There's weekly Zoom meetings on Fridays and Sundays where you can just get together with other people if you're missing that chance to do something together on the weekends. And so, yeah, check us out. Call or chat in. And I also want to mention, if you want another community to join, our good friends, the Atheist Community of Discord, is streaming this show as it is every week on Discord. And I've dropped the link in the chat there. Definitely go check those fine folks out, and you can have more lively conversation and community there too. Now, there's another way to find healing, sometimes from helping others. Rob, do you want to talk about how people can do that?
Certainly. So yes, as volunteers, we find meaning and purpose by volunteering and helping other people. We're always in need of volunteers. There are all sorts of jobs besides working the helplines, which most people hear about from the atheist experience and such.
Come and check us out. If you are interested in volunteering in any of the roles that we described earlier, we are always looking for more volunteers. We are completely volunteer run as an organization. And so any of those services that you just heard about, those are operated by volunteers. So if that sounds like something that you would be interested in doing, if the spirit moves you to do so, check us out, recoveringfromreligion.org/volunteer, and see what would be involved in making that happen. So that's enough about that. Let's talk about what we're doing here tonight, which is the format of our show. For those of you that haven't been here before, here's what we do. We have a discussion with our awesome guests for about an hour, and then we have a Q&A session. Usually lasts about 20 minutes. And in order for us to have that Q&A session, we need questions. So while the session is going on, if you have questions for our guest, type them into the chat. And it helps us out if you write the word question and then write your question. And Rob and I will be collecting them throughout the show so that we can go ahead and have those to ask at the end. So we'll do that. We'll have some closing thoughts by our wonderful executive director, Gayle Jordan. And then we'll move into our very popular social hangout where we turn off the recording and allow all of you to turn on your cameras and actually speak and talk and ask questions and continue the conversation after the show. So stay tuned for that. Now, let us come to the best part of the evening. We're going to bring on our guest, and if you'll give me just 1 second here. All right, there we go. We are going to introduce the wonderful, the amazing Kenny Biddle, who's going to talk to us about ghosts and spoopy things. Rob, would you like to introduce him?
So Kenny Biddle is a former ghost hunter who is now a skeptical paranormal investigator and a science enthusiast. For over 2 decades, he's been investigating claims of paranormal experiences, including ghosts, photos, and videos, and solving them. Kenny promotes science, critical thinking, and skepticism through his column, A Closer Look, and video series, Ghosts in the Machine. And these are both in Skeptical Inquirer magazine online, which everyone can see and read. He frequently hosts workshops on how to solve mysteries and deconstruct paranormal photography. And he hosts or co-hosts 2 live stream shows each week, providing an informed skeptical approach to paranormal topics. He also frequently attends paranormal-themed events to bring skepticism and critical thinking to folks who really need it. Lastly, Kenny was elected a fellow of the Committee for Skeptical Inquiry in 2020. And that puts him in the ranks of people like Carl Sagan and James Randi. Yeah, and he'll be speaking from the main stage for the first time at their conference, SciCon, in just 6 or so weeks, maybe less than that, in late October in Las Vegas. Welcome, Kenny.
There I am.
There you
Hello.
are.
Hello.
Hello, welcome. I'm
you.
so excited to have you on. I have been looking forward so much to this episode. I cannot wait to hear all the things from you about this topic.
All the things.
All the things.
I have
We're
all
gonna
the things here.
Yes, show us all of them. So yes, tell us everything. So you started as a ghost hunter.
Yeah.
You're a skeptical paranormal investigator now. Okay, break it down. How did you get started doing that? How long did you do that?
Break it down.
Break it down. Go. Yeah, you know
All right,
you're
so-
singing the presentation, right?
Oh my, you do not want that. I need a few more drinks before I get into that part. So yeah, basically I was a ghost hunter. Let's say around like the 90s, the early 90s, late 90s, I was a ghost hunter. I got married in 97, and as a gift to ourselves, we bought a computer, and we got on this new thing at the time called the World Wide Web. My goodness. So there was a lot of information out there. I couldn't access any of it, but I tried anyway. And one of the first things I looked up were ghosts, because I was always curious. I was raised Catholic. So I had this whole belief system already ingrained into my brain. And the funny thing was that going into my Catholic school, there were 2 books in the library that were about ghosts. And they were the only 2 books that I ever checked out through the whole library. They're the only ones I read. Every week I would go and check out the same books, sit there and read the same books over and over again. And that was just my exposure to ghosts and spirits. So
Was
I
this
believe-
a red flag to the teachers at the school?
Well, I mean, I was a nerd. I was a very quiet kid. So I didn't openly talk about it. I didn't say anything. I kept to myself, mostly through grade school and halfway through high school. I was very, very shy, which if you know me now, that's not a problem anymore. Not a problem. So basically, I when I got married and we got the computer and we got online, I found other people in the area that were like-minded. They were ghost hunters, and they had a team. They went out and they had gadgets and equipment. And I was like, wow, this is like all like real stuff. And I can do this. You know, I grew up on shows like In Search Of and
Yeah.
Unsolved Mysteries. So it was like all these mysteries out in the world were, to me as a child, far away. They were unreachable. I couldn't do any of it. But when I found these groups in the area, I was like, wow, I can really do this. I can go out with them. So I contacted them. I joined the group, and I started going to cemeteries late at night and alleged haunted houses, and started doing all that stuff. So yeah, I did that for several years, probably about 10 years. I was doing that with various groups, and I had my own group at one time where I was like, oh, I'm a ghost hunter. I know what I'm doing. And I was telling people, which now I regret, but I was telling people, yes, your place is haunted. And I have proof because my little gadget beeped. So that's a ghost. That must be a ghost. And that's pretty much standard operating procedure for ghost hunting.
Now, what is that gadget?
So this is an EMF meter.
Oh,
So it reads
like-
electromagnetic fields. It gives you a field strength, and it beeps when you get close. I don't know if it's going to beep now when I turn it on, but when I get close to something, let me see. No, I can't make it go off, but it will beep when it changes the reading. If it jumps like a couple steps, it'll go beep, 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 beep. And unfortunately, that's like an indication to some people that there is a ghost in the area. And there's plenty of other gadgets. So that's how I started. That's how I started with this. Do you want me to keep going, or?
Yes, and
questions?
tell us also, like, did you believed that you were detecting ghosts at this time?
I did
Oh.
because I was Well, to be honest, I was ignorant. I didn't know any better.
But you were
I-
primed. You were primed. By
I
all
was
these
I
things
was
you
totally
read.
primed. I mean,
Yeah.
from my upbringing, I had that established kind of upbringing where I believed there was an afterlife, there was a heaven and hell, there were angels. We could pray to people that were in heaven or purgatory, and sometimes they would give us signs, but not bad signs. They were all good signs because they had to be good because they were in heaven. So I already had that kind of belief, that background established. So jumping right to ghosts and UFOs and aliens and Bigfoot and Loch Ness monster, really easy. I mean, it's a sidestep, like a half a step sideways, and you're good. So I had all of those beliefs with me.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense that you were primed for that. I remember going to school. It wasn't Catholic school. It was Protestant conservative school. But yeah, we were taught that, there were demons everywhere. There was spiritual warfare going on, and it was invisible to you, but it was all in the background, and there were spirits and everything in your home. It would not be a great leap to think that, well, I can use this gadget to detect these things that we already know are there.
And that's it. It fell right into it because, I mean, I looked at my parents growing up and my grandparents on both sides as authority figures. So when they told me you have to do this and this is real, I believed them. And that transferred over to other people that look like an authority figure. So when you show up at a house and everyone's wearing matching bowling shirts, but they're not on a bowling team because they're on a ghost hunting team, which wears the same uniform, it looks like they know what they're doing, and they have Pelican cases, filled with all this fancy devices and stuff, and turn on, and you have no idea what they're doing. I was like, all right, well, they look professional, they look like they know what they're doing, so I have no reason to doubt them.
So Cara mentioned demons. This is interesting because I'm not aware, correct me if I'm wrong. I always just hear when people think they see ghosts, they don't really necessarily break them into good ghosts and bad ghosts. They're just ghosts, or am I wrong? Some people think they're finding demons?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Demons are very sexy now. Very, very sexy, very popular. It used to be when you heard of a demonic case or something, a house having demons, it was very rare. And it was more something that that was reserved for movies and TV and stories and books. You really didn't see too many groups saying anything. But as more groups started forming in the early 2000s and more, I mean, there's thousands of ghost hunting groups. You have this evolution. It's almost like when you go back to like Victorian times with psychics and mediums, from the Fox sisters on up, you had this progression. Every medium wanted to outdo the mediums before them, and you have that now with ghost hunters. They want to do or outdo the people that came before them. They're not just ghost hunters, because now that's more of a hobby. They want it to be paranormal investigators, and now they want to specialize. So now you have demonologists, and although there are actually demonologists out there that are trained, and usually it's a religious affiliation and they have training and stuff, the demonologists that I'm talking about are people that say, well, I'm going to go hunt demons now, so therefore I claim the title of demonologist. You also
so it's not like you don't get a degree in that or a certificate. No. You just anoint yourself demonologist.
Yes. Pretty much all of these titles. I've dealt with several people that have claimed to be parapsychologists, and although parapsychology is a real thing, and you used to be able to get a degree in the States, you can't anymore. The only places I know is the University of Edinburgh, where you can still get a degree in that. Lloyd Auerbach is one of the probably the most popular in the States because he's been on a lot of television shows. He is a friend of mine, but parapsychologist is a title that people appropriate. They take it. Ghost hunters feel that I want to make that clear. Some ghost hunters feel that they are very scientific, even though they're not. And it looks better on TV in that lower thirds title to say, my name is blah, blah, and then parapsychologist underneath of it.
That's better than, person who saw a demon,
Yes. And there was a gentleman that did that. He was on several TV shows, and the lower thirds would name him a parapsychologist, and he would introduce himself conferences as a parapsychologist. So I investigated him and found out that no, he went to one of these diploma mills and he purchased a diploma, which I did the same thing. And I'll tell you what, I am a parapsychologist because I took the entire course, like 400 hours worth of course material, and I did it in 5 hours during happy hour when I was blitzed out of my mind, and I still got 100% on the test.
You aced it.
Oh
Huh?
my God. Sounds
So-
like the booze helped.
Well, I mean, I'm not going to lie. It did.
The spirits helped you pass.
Yes, the
Oh.
spirits. There you go. But yeah, I mean, you have that runs rampant in the ghost hunting community. People love to give themselves titles that they don't earn. And it's a shame. It's a shame because it presents that sense of authority to people. And when you're dealing with a homeowner that maybe does have weird things going on in their home and
Yeah.
they're scared, they don't know what's going on. They have no knowledge of how to look into this. And they see someone advertised on a TV show or online and they're in the area, they call them out. And you see this group come in with, again, the bowling shirts and all these cases filled with equipment, and there's beeps and lights and stuff going all over the place. It looks like something out of like the movies. It looks like the parapsychology team from Poltergeist coming into their house and setting up.
I was actually going to ask you that. Is any of the what's happening in the community going for bigger and better things, demons instead of just bland, vanilla ghosts? Is it driven by what's been in the movies and fiction, so they have to match that?
I think so. I think some of it. I think the big reliance on gadgets came directly from Ghostbusters. Pre-1984, you had very little electronic equipment. It was mostly practical stuff. People would use like tissue paper or feathers to check for drafts in a house. You had candles to check for drafts and to light the way. You had baby powder to look for footsteps. Very practical tools to use. And then Ghostbusters came out in 84, and you had the PKA meter, which is the grandchild or grandfather of the EMF meter, which the first handheld EMF meter came out not long after that. It's very old. I haven't been able to get a hold of one, but then people started using it, and it's that idea. It looks very scientific, and even though most people don't know what they're doing with it, it still looks cool.
And it beeps.
And it beeps. It beeps. It lights
What
up.
more could you want?
And sometimes you see the needle go bouncing around, and it's like, oh, look at that. And we get our classic claim that the needle's going back and forth, and they're like, well, what else could cause this?
Obviously ghosts.
Obviously, it's ghosts.
The only explanation. Come on.
I think they're ignoring the transdimensional Sasquatches. I'm sorry.
Well, I
Right.
saw that on the $6 Million Man, so I'm good. I know where you're going there, Rob.
But can we rebuild him?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. I mean, we have the technology.
But I don't want to spend a lot of money.
Oh, all right.
So
$6.
yes. So the thing is, Kenny, ghosts being just uniformly accepted as the spirits of people, right, who've passed on, right, the
Right.
consciousness in some form of people. Why isn't it, time traveling people from the future who are only partially materialized in our dimension, or people just in another dimension, or aliens whose shields aren't working quite perfectly? Like, why is it dead people?
So I think because this is an ancient.
So you laugh at that, but
It's an ancient
that's not
No, I'm
necessarily
laughing.
any funnier than ghosts.
I'm laughing
being
because
dead people.
people do say that.
Okay.
People do have that, Rob. I mean, we go into everything. I mean, I think ghosts as being defined as the spirit of a dead person is Victorian. It's even older than that. It's much older than that, because there's always been some kind of belief across cultures that the dead go somewhere else, and once in a while they come back, either from a bad thing because they can't pass on and they have unfinished business, or because weird reasons. But I think when you get in more modern times, now people are scrambling for justification. It's not always just the spirits of the dead. It's Like especially when you talk about Bigfoot, one of the justifications for Bigfoot being real but unfound so far
Interdimensional.
is he's interdimensional.
There we go.
And he can go through portals to a different dimension and escape us.
Of course.
And I mean, I wish I was kidding, but that's a real reason that's given.
And any of the dead, that's why we don't find any dead bodies or bones or,
Yeah, because they take back their dead, or they jump through,
back through the portal. Yeah.
Aliens are also a thing. I mean, when we brought up hallucinations when waking up or going to sleep before we started broadcasting. But you have people that have sleep paralysis, something like that, where they have these waking dreams and they see things, they see shadows, they see figures, they feel movement or a presence in the room. And those are translated into either ghosts, demons, or aliens. So there is some crossing over, overlap between the genres here, but yeah, it's not just the spirits of the dead. And I think branching out is more modern. I think that's more within the last like 30, 40 years that it's been overlapping, because I think the people are looking for more excuses.
Yeah. So I just, in fact, watched a presentation from Adrian Hill regarding spirit photography that you gave.
Oh, love Adrian Hill.
To the Australian group, and you had quite a few shout outs because she was referencing your work. But that was fascinating to me. So she talked about the history of photographing spirits and ghosts. Apparently spirit photography and ghost photography, two different things, long story, but over history and how that's changed. You want to get a little into that? And by the way, those are always seen as spirits of people, right? Mostly Abraham Lincoln, by the way, people. I don't know why. He's in all of them, but they're not, they don't ever say, oh, look, there's an alien from Zeta Reticuli 5, right? They're always dead people.
Always. All right, I'll give you an extremely condensed version, because I mean, Adrian, go over and see some of her talks, because she goes into really good detail. But spirit photography and ghost photography. Spirit photography is basically the old Victorian photographs that you've seen, where you have the nice dressed, very straight back people posing, and then behind them or in front of them, there's a faint image of another person. And that's spirit photography. And it's basically, it comes down to long exposure or double exposures. Mostly double
done
exposure.
fraudulently, clearly.
It's
right?
fraudulently, yeah.
The most famous one is Mary Todd Lincoln sitting in a chair having her portrait taken by a photographer, and Abe is over her, with his hands on her shoulders.
Yeah. And it's very easily done, except you have to know what you're doing. That's basically it. And we're talking about plate photography. We're not talking about film. We're talking about glass plates that were treated with chemicals and then loaded into the camera after the focusing was done. So you have to remember these huge cameras, and I'm going to show you a little prop here. Wasn't expecting to. This is not a real camera. That's why there's little tiny mice over it. It's more of a decoration. But these old cameras like that, they'd have to focus them first. And then once they're done focusing, then they would slide the plate in the back. And then you would have the cover that would cover everything, no light at all. And they would expose it for several seconds. If anyone has had like an old time photograph done, you know this. They dress you up, you sit there, and you have to sit still for like a good 10 seconds at least. And that's because all the natural light has to come in and reflect off of you to get a good image. So if you develop that plate and you show it to them, you're like, oh, cool, they like it. And then you make some prints from it, but you don't clean the plate and reinstall the chemicals for the next shooting. If you just load that back in, you can get another image onto it.
Oh, so it could even happen by mistake, just through negligence.
Yes, it could.
But yeah, except with the Mary Todd Lincoln one, they didn't get, they didn't drag the dead body of Abe Lincoln behind her. So that was
right.
Either a real ghost or a clear fraud.
I think several.
I wonder which one it is.
Yeah, I wonder.
I know Adrian was talking about how one of the photographers was caught breaking into people's houses. They were stealing pictures of their dead relatives in order to use them for that, which is really, really dishonest. William Mumler was the guy that was most famous for doing these spirit photography. He was the one that really made it famous, and he died poor. He was drawn into court. He was sued, but he beat it. He didn't get convicted of fraud, which he should have been, but he didn't. But then it goes on. So other people developed other techniques, basically the same way to do it, but other people were doing it and making money off of it. So that's your spirit photography. And now you get in the modern times where you have ghost photography. And that's just basically a more modern term where people were using some film and a lot more digital cameras in order to take pictures of all kinds of ghosts. And I put ghosts in the quotes because they're not your transparent figures that we're used to seeing in old photos. They are bright balls of light, transparent balls of light, mists that float through the air, any kind of drone light or dragged out light across the image. There's also shadow figures, and then your basic apparition, which can be a partial person or not. So there's a lot to talk about with that.
It just amazes me how the spirit world has decided to present itself differently in photographs as technology changed of taking photographs. It's just amazing.
It is. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, it almost sounds like, anything, if you want to see it, you can find some anomaly in your photograph and imagine it to be the thing that you're looking for. I mean, I had this experience one time with some friends. We went, on a lark, on a ghost hunt through Boston to see all the cemeteries, just for fun. And, we had a good time, and, you ended the pub and everything. And we were, all laughing and joking about, oh, look, here's our photos from the ghost tour. And one of my friends posted them on Facebook. Here's some pictures from the cemetery on our ghost tour. And, we're all laughing and having a good time. Well, someone on Facebook immediately saw one of those photos, zoomed in really close on one spot, and the shadow in the photo actually made it look like there was something like crawling up from behind one of the tombstones. And everyone lost their minds. They're like, oh my God, y'all encountered a ghost on your ghost tour. And we're like, no, I promise that's just a headstone. It's a shadow. But that was all it took. And everyone was convinced on Facebook all of a sudden.
I get that a lot. I mean, every day I'm getting emails, and I feel I'm not like bitter. I don't shrug them off, but every day I get emails from people saying, hey, I got this amazing ghost photo. Can you look at it? And 9 times out of 10, it's something that's cropped down like that. They don't realize that the more you crop down a digital image, the more pixelated it's going to be and the more distorted it's going to be. But with the evolution that Rob mentioned, I mean, you went from these beautiful looking, and I love them. I love trying to collect them because they're beautiful images of spirit photography where you have this well-defined face of a person. And then you go about 50, 60 years into the future or more, about 20 years ago, and you get these orbs. You get these little balls of light, and it's like, what the fuck, man? Come on. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said that. But
no, you're fine.
The technology got better, and the pictures got shitty.
I mean, you went to cameras like this, compact camera, where the flash right here is within an inch of the lens. So yeah, when you're taking pictures out there at night, and there's dust everywhere, and most people don't realize that, yes, there is dust everywhere. Just shine a flashlight, turn a flashlight on at night, do it in your room with the lights off. You'll see how much dust is floating around everywhere. So if you get one speck of dust in front of that lens that's lit up by that flash, you get your orb. And they became very popular in the late 90s, early 2000s. Very popular, and people still use them today.
Yeah, I have a friend, and she goes to prisons where people are executed and takes photos and gets all the orbs, and she's absolutely certain that that's what they are, the spirits of the executed people.
But it's actually just that they haven't changed the air filters in quite some time.
What air filter? There's no HVAC systems.
What's really bad is,
it's just dusty all over.
One of the biggest pieces of advice, most common pieces of advice I tell people when they're taking photos is, when you get your camera, read the manual. Read the manual. Of course, people don't read the manual. They don't even get manuals anymore. They just use their phones. I mean, you're using your phones to take pictures. You don't have manuals. But if you read a camera manual, they will discuss what's called the circles of confusion. And circles of confusion are exactly that. It's these little bits. It's things that are beyond or much more before the point of focus. So your camera only focuses on one distance at a time. So if you have little specks that are much closer to the lens or farther away, they're going to be blurry. So street lights in the distance, they're going to be blurry. If you happen to hold your camera, like this was a common way to hold your camera like this back in the day. And the little hairs on your finger, if they go in front of the lens, guess what? You're gonna get these weird streaks of light. And I can't tell you how many times I've gotten them. So there's so much. I mean, this is like a 2-day course that we could go through with photography and anomalies and stuff like that. So
I actually met Kenny at 2017 when he did his first SciCon talk. It was a workshop, and he did exactly that. He made us all bring cameras, suggested we all bring cameras to it, and he actually demonstrated, let's try to replicate this kind of photograph that looks like it's a ghost right in this room, and we were able to do that with several different types.
Wow.
fun.
But Rob, how do you know that there weren't just ghosts also attending?
They could have been mixed in
panel?
there. That's true. So that's a valid question. We're all like, kind of poking fun at the whole concept, but do we actually know that there are? Can you prove there are no ghosts, Mr. Biddle?
I cannot. No, I cannot. It's an open question, and I openly admit that, yeah, I can't prove that ghosts don't exist. I can't prove that God doesn't exist, or any of the gods or goddesses. I can't prove that they don't exist, but I can replicate what people show me. So if you bring me a photograph, if you bring me a video, and we study it and we figure out some of the details and we can replicate it, I can at least demonstrate that, yes, under the same conditions, we can get the same results.
And then one just has to use Occam's razor and say, okay, which is more likely, right? It's a thing I was able to demonstrate, or dead people's spirits, which can visit the world.
And hey, if you have something else, if you have more information, by all means, show it to me. I'll sit down with you. We'll have a few beers. We'll sit and talk. We'll chat. We'll go over it, but it better be good. Don't waste my time, with a lot of crap.
I read your last article where you actually went out of your way to make a trip to visit this person who had certified photos of ghosts that were verified.
Oh, certified, verified by who? Other ghosts?
How? Well, they were authenticated by various prominent photographers. And I went into it. I drove down to North Carolina. I was going down there on business anyway. So I went another hour and a half out of my way to meet with this person, who kept saying she had an amazing photograph of an apparition. It was legit. It was 100%
afterlife.
She would not send me a copy, even though myself and Ben Rafford, my editor, explained to her multiple times how copyright works. And that she still owns it. We can't use it without her permission. She still would not send it to us. So I ended up going, saw it in person immediately. As soon as I saw the picture, I was like, well, this is a room in like a big mansion, right? It was Biltmore Estate, if anyone's familiar with that. Huge estate. And I said, you were visiting, right? She's like, yeah. It's like, there was plexiglass in front of this room, right? And she's like, well, yeah. It's like, because you got a reflection of someone behind you. You didn't get an apparition, you got a reflection. That's what I'm looking at, because I can see your reflection, I can see that reflection. It's a reflection.
And of course, Kenny, so then they immediately retracted their claim, right?
So we went back and forth for a little bit, and I explained to her exactly what was happening here, and I wanted to enhance it. So I asked her to send it to me. If I could have it, I'll send her a letter saying, I promise I'm not going to, distribute it. I'm not going to try to make money off of it. I just want to enhance it for you so you can see, one, yourself, because I can see a faint outline of yourself. I need to be able to do this. But yeah, she agreed. She said, oh, okay, I get it. I understand. And I explained my background. I have several years in photography doing different forms of photography. I've been investigating these kind of claims for years and years. So I've seen this thousands of times, literally thousands of times. So I recognize it right away. Like a year later, I find out that she's contacting other people and saying that not only myself, but Ben Rafford, who she never met, has endorsed this as an apparition, that we were fascinated and we want a copy to study. and she's still claiming about these other people. And then I did a deep dive. I contacted several of the people that she claims were authenticating it, and they were like, no, we did not. So I had their responses in writing, which I published with the article showing that no, she's a fraud. So
Wow.
yeah, that was fun. That was fun. And luckily it was a friend of mine that alerted me to that, because I didn't know. She never responded to me, and she never talked to me. I reached out to her. She didn't reach back out. So I had no idea.
So
She doesn't want to have any idea that you're going to come
Right.
back and say, no, I do not endorse this.
Nope, but she's going to now.
Yeah.
I assure you, it's out there now.
So I brought this up because I've actually heard people say, well, my friend said they heard someone saw a ghost and they had no reason to lie. So like, how do you know someone didn't have a reason to lie or just was mistaken?
Yeah. I have yet to meet a person that has no reason to lie.
My biggest, I guess, I don't even know what to say with that. The biggest example that I get with that is from parents. Mom or dad will send me a photo they got from their child and say, well, I got this. I'm worried because my son or daughter said that they caught this spirit in their room, and I'm afraid for them. And there's no reason they would ever lie to me. And when I open the picture, it's a phone app. And I've seen it like dozens of times. And I immediately respond saying, well, I understand that no one would think that their own kid would lie to them, but unfortunately, your kid is playing a prank on you. Here's a picture to show what I'm talking about. And I will always have the same ghost, like in the palm of my hand, on my shoulder, something like that.
Oh my goodness.
So I'm not responding going, your kid's lying. You should ground them. It's like, hey, I think they're playing a prank. You might want to talk to them.
Or the actual spirit knows about this app and decided it can make itself look like anything, and it decided to look like one of the ghosts in the ghost app.
Yeah, I don't have time that far into it. I'm good.
Well, but that brings up a good point. It kind of sounds like, Kenny, your approach is a skeptical one. When someone brings to you a claim or a photo, you're looking to try and see if there are other explanations.
Right.
How is that the same or different from the way other ghost hunters or paranormal investigators might be approaching a claim like that?
So I would think, in my experience, I've observed most ghost hunters they're anomaly hunting. They're not trying to solve a mystery. They're not trying to figure out what's going on. They are looking for anomalies. They're looking for that thrill. And it's for many, I would consider it almost an addiction, because every weekend they're going out and they're looking for that rush, that scare rush, that scare tactic thing, where they're going out and they're spending 4 or 5 hours at one location. They turn the lights out. They're using a lot of gadgets, which, again, I have to stress, most of them really don't understand what the gadgets do or how they're supposed to be operated. And we can get into that later. But they're using these things. If they blink, they're amazed, because they're not looking for a cause. They have no controls in place to guard against any known variables that would make those gadgets go off, which one of the most popular ones is walkie-talkies. Any two-way radio will make a lot of these things go off. But they're not guarding against that. They're going out there hoping something happens. If there's a shadow down the hall, if there's a noise on the stairway or upstairs or downstairs, they don't go investigate. They embrace that thrill, that rush that they get, like, oh my God, there's something there. There's something there. And they want to talk to it. And they ask questions. And if there's another noise, I mean, when your evidence consists of, if there's a ghost here, make a noise, and they wait. And if it doesn't happen, they ask again. And then again. And then once you get that, did you hear that? Did you hear that? That's a knock. That's a ghost. Obviously, we have communication. And I know I'm kind of making fun. I'm mocking a little bit, but for the most part, I'm friends with a lot of them. But
so let's talk about the more realistic ghost communication, besides them just knocking when you ask, like maybe 2 hours later. The EVP, that has to be for real, right, Kenny?
No. No.
So tell everybody what EVP is.
So EVP stands for electronic voice phenomena. And the basic idea is they use digital recorders, audio recorders, and they leave them out or they hold them by hand and they turn them on, recording, and they ask questions and they leave pauses between the questions. So after a certain time frame, like 5 minutes, they stop it, they listen to it, and they listen for any anomalies. They listen for any kind of noises. The problem, again, it comes back to lack of controls, because sometimes they're holding it. And if you've seen, I don't have one in front of me, but a lot of these, the new recorders, they look something like this or smaller. They're handheld. The microphone is built into the case. So if you're holding it, the simple friction of your hand, I don't know if you can hear that.
Yeah.
The simple friction of your fingers across the body will cause weird noises. And that has been misinterpreted plenty of times as an answer or some kind of response, which is a big problem. But again, these groups, they already believe when they're going in. They already have that primer going. They're going into a haunted place. They know it's haunted because they read about it. They can't wait to get all the evidence. They haven't even been into the place yet, but they're already convinced that they're going to get evidence of spirits. And that's the mentality going in. So once you play these EVPs, or there's another version called the Spirit Box, where it's basically a broken radio, and it goes through this FM or AM stations without muting the sound. So you're constantly hearing that going through, and they ask questions, and they're listening for any kind of response. And with that, I mean, you're going to get, you always get tidbits of the stations coming through.
So you're hearing some words.
Yes.
Mixed in with static, and
And it's amazing when you sit and really listen to them and watch them, because they will wait till their question is finished and then listen for some kind of response. But they're ignoring all the words that you can hear during the question.
Oh my goodness.
Or if it doesn't match what they want, if it doesn't fall into the context of the question, they're not paying attention to it, and they ignore it. And not everyone gets it. One person in the back of the room might say, "I heard Mike." At the same time, someone in front might say, "Oh, I heard ice cream." And it's completely subjective. Completely subjective. There's no science whatsoever to this. But that's the evidence that they present, and it's fun when you get
audio pareidolia
yeah,
part in that, right? And a lot of I've seen examples of this, heard examples of this online and videos where they play something and they, what is it saying? And you really can't tell anything. And then they put the text up, right? What they suppose it says, and then they play it again, and now you hear it clearly and you can't stop hearing it.
Right.
So you're essentially primed. And I guess that's what you're saying. The people are wanting to hear certain answers, and that's what they hear.
Yeah. One of the things I've noticed is when they, especially with the Spirit Box thing that constantly scans through the frequencies, they will ask a question such as, "What's your name?" And they wait, and it's going through all the stations, and somebody might say, "Oh, I heard chair." And the conversation changes now to, "Oh, is that what you were sitting on when you died? Did you die in a chair?" And my first thought is, they didn't answer your question. You asked for a name and you heard chair. That doesn't answer your question. Why are you stopping everything and changing direction? Why are you not saying, "You didn't answer my question"?
Yeah.
So that's the mentality.
Yeah. So then tell us a little bit more. What was your journey from, beginning from a place where this was interesting to you, perhaps even convincing to you, to where you realized, oh, actually it's all of these other explanations and things that are going on? Was there like a turning point or some moment where you realized, wait a second, this is something different?
there was so I was in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. And
I just went on a ghost tour there recently. I'm so excited to hear this. Yes.
I
went with some friends.
last weekend.
Oh, I was there a few weeks ago, and my friends swear they saw ghosts after our ghost tour.
So we were there, and this was years and years and years ago. We were there for a paranormal conference. It was a ghost conference going on. So we were out in the fields. We had been told by one of the rangers that there was this special place and nobody goes there, but it's really active and only the Rangers knew about it. So we were excited. I mean, a group of ghost hunters, like, this is new territory. No one knows about it. We're like, oh, yay. So we're all giddy. We're out there. It's dark and we're in the woods. And right next to it, like the tree line is about maybe like 20 feet from me. And I can see an open field and the road that leads up to where we parked. I can see everything. We've been there for a while. Nothing's really happening. And then I see car headlights and there's 3 cars coming down the road. I see them pull over and there's a bunch of people that get out. They see flashlights start going around and the people start walking through the field. And I start getting mad because they're heading in our direction. And I'm like, oh no, what if they come on in here? Like, they're going to find us and we can't be mean. I mean, we can be mean and tell them to go away, but what if they come in here? We're going to be like, oh, hey guys, what's up? Yeah, we're just hanging out. Nothing special here. But they got closer and closer and they were getting loud and having fun, goofing off, laughing. And me, as a serious ghost hunter, that was pissing me off because I was trying to do my recordings, my EVP, Rob, all this stuff. So as they got real close, I lost my temper and I walked out right at the tree line and I started screaming at them, go away, be quiet, you're messing everything up. I really have no idea what I said, but I yelled at them. They stopped dead. And 5 seconds later, they all turn, run back to their cars. They get in, drive away. I'm like, all right, good. I don't have to deal with them. Awesome. Went through the rest of the night. Nothing really happened. Get up the next morning. We go down to the conference and we're mingling and we hear some of the group talking about their experience last night and that they were at the wheat field. And I'm like, oh, we were at the wheat field. That's cool. What they do. And like, oh, we were walking across the field and all of a sudden this apparition came out of the darkness of the woods and it yelled at us. It yelled at us to get out. And I'm thinking, my first thought is like, well, I was there. I don't remember that. I was there all night. What's going on here? And then, the light bulb went on. I guess I had to screw it in a little bit tighter.
You are the ghost.
I was the ghost. And
that's when you realized you'd been dead all this time.
I know. Then I woke up and realized like my wife really never talked to me.
Yeah.
All my friends just, they ignored me. Like, what's going on? I mean, I tried repeatedly to talk to them and say, look, this was me. I was here. I did this. I yelled at you. No,
sure you did,
Kenny.
They didn't
want to hear it.
You did.
So you tried to tell them it was you?
Yes. Yeah. And that was my inner struggle. My cognitive dissonance was going on, like button heads, like, wait a minute. I was there. I'm trying to tell them I also believe in ghosts, but they believe in ghosts and they're not believing me because I'm telling them why is this happening? Like, it's so simple. I was there. And that really, really set me on a different path. It got me thinking. It pretty much crushed all the ideas that I had because I couldn't fathom why they were not taking a logical explanation of an eyewitness that was there. But
that was the ghost.
That was the ghost, but there were more of them, and they all swore that they saw an apparition. So,
wow.
I mean, with that was my big turning point. I started really looking at the skeptical literature, the science, like who does this that does more science than what the ghost hunters do. And before this, I always thought of scientists and skeptics as they were evil. They were evil. They didn't want to know. They didn't want us to prove because we knew more than they did because we were ghost hunters. That was my mentality.
It was like we're being, put down by the academics in the ivory tower,
Yeah. The science man was putting us down.
So then you eventually came full circle. And so now, as I mentioned in the introduction, you actually go to paranormal events and sit at a table all by your lonesome as the only evil person in the whole room because everyone else is a ghost hunter and believes it. So how does that work out?
I am the goldfish in a piranha pond. I like to put it. But you know what? It's not as bad as you think. Most of the places that I do set up, a booth, and I have a booth, and it's modeled after Lucy's psychiatric stand from Peanuts, but it says skeptical help booth on it instead of psychiatric help. And it does say the skeptic is in, and in turns around to out if I have to leave for a break. But I set it up, and these conferences that I do go to, they let me. I ask, or they invite me to come out, because they've realized over the years, because I haven't been confrontational. I've tried to work with them. I try to be as nice as possible, and I try to point out things, not in a superior kind of way. It's, hey, let's talk about this. Have you ever considered this idea? Or I try to bring up something like, let's put the ghost idea aside, and what would you think could cause this? And ghost can't be an explanation. What do you come up with that might explain this? And then we talk from there. So over the years, it has developed into a lot of good relationships. And I mean, I've had conference organizers of paranormal conferences that, I mean, are mostly for ghost hunters, psychics, para celebrities, defend me against other people that wanted me kicked out.
Oh.
So, I mean, that, to me, that's the biggest compliment I can get. It really is. And it's nice because people come up. You have different categories of people. You have some that are come up that are curious. A lot come up because they see the booth and they're like, oh, I know that. That's cool. I like that. They come up and we talk. But there's others that come up and they have that side eye kind of thing. Like, all right, we're going to play some stump the skeptic. We're going to see if we can stump you. Okay. And they start telling me a story. And they're like, how do you explain that? How do you explain that?
Oh.
And we talk. Like, I don't give into that. I don't give into the bait. We talk about it. I say, give me more information. Or sometimes I can't explain it. And I tell them that I can't explain it because I don't have enough information about this. But if you want to contact me later, we can talk about it.
So to segue a little bit into your PsyCon talk coming up, this is what it's going to be about, right? You're interfacing with people who are on the other side of the fence. Yeah, we're going to talk about how some, and I put some in there, some skeptics and believers can work together, ways that we can work together. And it's pretty simple. Be polite. I mean, my first rule, like I do a live show Friday nights, and one of my rules is the Patrick Swayze rule, and that's be nice until it's time not to be nice. And be nice means just that. Be nice. Don't go in there with the attitude like you're wrong. Like, yeah, I thought you were going to mention the Phil Plait rule. The who? The Phil Plait rule, the bad astronomer. Isn't he the one who coined "Don't be a dick"?
Oh.
Well, that goes in with my other. I mean, that's the rest of the rule. Because usually I tell people, like, you can be in the chat room and you can debate and discuss and disagree. That's fine, but just don't be a dick. Because my wife, who sits on the side, she'll kick you out. But I mean, that's the basic idea, is to be nice. Approach them, talk to them, have a conversation like this. This is why I like doing live interviews much better than something that's scripted. I like having this conversation where we don't know where the conversation is going to go and what might come up. And I might be able to show you something. I might be able, because I always carry a camera around. So if you have a photo or a video, we can look at it and we can try to duplicate it. And that practical experience is so much better than just someone standing there and telling you, oh, this is how it really is, because they're going to walk away and forget it. But if you have that practical experience, that's going to make more of an impact. So that's one of the steps. So when people come up to you, what do you say to this question? Haven't you ever found evidence in favor of a paranormal explanation? And I say, well, you know what? I haven't found anything that proved to me conclusively that there was something paranormal. But there has been plenty of times where I've been left with, I don't know. And for me, that's a perfectly acceptable answer. I have no problem saying that. I'm not embarrassed by it, because I, in fact, don't know. And I need more information. So if we can look into it now, or if we can look into it in a few days, or if we have to put it in a file and put it in a drawer for a while until, a couple months or years later where we get a chance to revisit it, then we'll open the file and we'll take a look again.
The,
But,
the analogy to religion there strikes me, because like people, I don't know how this works. I don't understand how this could be, therefore God, right? And for Ghost Hunter, I don't know what could have done that. You can't explain it, therefore ghost.
right.
It's like, I don't know, but I know because it's a ghost. I don't know, but it's God. So it's just making the decision that you have to know, and you have to decide what it is right then and there, and being very uncomfortable with I don't know.
I think it's a personal, I think it's a human trait, you know, that if we don't know, then nobody knows. And that's kind of the mentality that we see. I mean, how often do you see that? Like, I don't know, I can't explain it, so it must be that. And that's not, you're forgetting about the billion other people that are on the planet that have different knowledge or more knowledge than you do. If I don't know, and it's something that's interesting, I will seek out other people. Skeptical Inquirer is a great magazine that I write for, and that we write for, Rob. And there's a list of fellows on the front cover, on the inside front cover, and on the back inside cover, there's a whole bunch of resources that you can check into. So there's tons of people you can look up. And I have no problem asking for help. No problem. I used to be like, well, help, you know, I have to do it myself. You know, I have to figure this out myself. But I learned quickly that shit don't work. You don't get too far if you got to rely on just yourself. So yeah, I have no problem reaching out to other people, saying, look, I have no clue. You know, what do you think about this? And getting information and going from there.
You want to share any example of something that you investigated and there was a reasonable amount of information, but you still couldn't replicate it or figure it out? Anything come to mind like that?
Let's see. Replicate. Oh, something I couldn't figure out. That's honestly, I'm not trying to sound conceited, but no.
Well, then tell us some that you did figure out.
I mean, I'm really picky with my cases. You know,
Okay,
I want to
so
make sure that there is information out there.
So as Kara said, let's go the other direction. How about tell us about the famous Dybbuk box that they made the movie about?
Oh my goodness. I feel so weird after that question. But yeah, the Dybbuk box was something that's been promoted as one of the most haunted objects in the world. And it started with a 2004, I think, eBay auction where a gentleman named Kevin Mannis, he put it up for sale, and he wrote this story about how it was a Nazi concentration camp survivor who had acquired the box after she escaped the concentration camp. And her whole entire family was killed in there. She was the only one to survive. She escaped to Spain with some other people. She acquired the box. Then sometime came to America. But during this time, she had trapped what's called a Dybbuk in it. And in Jewish folklore, mythology, a Dybbuk is the spirit of a person that it doesn't go on. It's afraid to move on, so it cleaves onto another person's soul. So it kind of shares a body with another person. But this guy, Kevin Mannis, claimed that there was a Dybbuk trapped in this box. And the Dybbuk box is a liquor cabinet. It's a small liquor cabinet. I have one.
It's a spirit cabinet.
Yeah.
Oh.
I actually didn't expect to talk about it tonight, but I have one down in my basement. It's very small. It's not that big at all. It has 4 bottles in it, a couple glasses, like 8 glasses. That's the original. But this got this story about all these bad things that happened with it, and like people dying or getting very sick, and it was being sold and then sold again because nobody wanted it. Eventually it went to a gentleman, Jason Haxton, who was a museum director, and he wrote a book about it. And then it was optioned for a movie, and I think the movie is called The Possession. So if you ever watch the movie The Possession, it's about the Dybbuk box.
Based on a real story, as it says in the beginning.
And I'm hearing, 0 occasions where there was any financial gain to be made by promoting this story, right?
Oh, well, so Kevin, I think he made $142 or something like that off of the original sale, and then it was sold again for 280. And then later, Jason Haxton, who wrote the book, I don't know if it was sold or donated, probably sold, to Zach Baggins in Las Vegas and his Zach Baggins Not Haunted Museum in Las Vegas, Nevada, which I've been to twice. I'm sorry, I'm distracted by the t-shirt back there with Thor's hammer. Love it. But yeah, so it's been in there ever since. I actually went to the museum a few years ago and saw it, and they were talking about all the stories behind it and people touching it and getting cursed and everything bad. So I started digging into it because I was like, let me see if I can find one or see what there's information about it. And I did find out that it was not produced over in Spain. It was not produced during World War II. It was a little bit afterwards. It was late 1950s that this was produced, and it was produced in New York. And I had the original patent for it. 1958 was when the patent was filed, and then they started producing them. It's a small tabletop liquor cabinet, and as I dug more into it, I found little hints here and there. Actually, Kevin Manis, the original guy, posted on Facebook somewhere. He was arguing with people and slipped up and posted that you won't find any mention of a Dybbuk box prior to my story because I'm the creator of the story and I did this and this and this. So he admitted openly that he made up the story. I was like, oh, look at this. So I wrote an article about it. And then not too long ago, Kevin Manis actually contacted me and said he wanted to talk about it more. So I had him on my live show. And the first question was, did you make up the story about the Dybbuk box and the curse and all that stuff? And he was like, well, yeah, just like Orson Welles made up, the War of the Worlds. I was like, well, he did make it up. So yeah, okay. So we're on the same page. Yeah. And we went into it a lot. But I mean, with that's a good story, Rob, that you brought up, because there's a anecdote that goes with that. About a year ago, I was at a paranormal conference in Gettysburg again, and a young lady came up to me as I was setting up my booth. And at the time I had my version of the Dybbuk box, which is actually like a earlier model, but I had that set up and I had a big poster board behind my booth that detailed the timeline of everything and when he came out and admitted it. So she's looking at it and she's like, can you explain this to me? So I did. And when I got to the part where it was all made up, like a tear came down her face. And I'm like, what's wrong? And she told me the story, and I get choked up when I tell this. She told me that she had won like a special trip to the museum in Vegas before it opened. And she had a chance to go in that room, and she had allegedly touched the box. And she had heard all the stories, and she thought she was cursed because 2 weeks later, her son committed suicide. And she blamed herself for that because she touched that box and because of all the stories that were told about it. And when she heard and saw the documentation, because I showed her everything, I'm like, here are all the documents. This is the clips where he admits that he made it up. She started bawling. And I mean, I was crying. My wife was crying. We were all hugging. And it just showed. And that's something I brought up to Kevin when he was on my show. I'm like, you don't understand. Like, you wrote a story for fun and to make some money, but you don't have any idea the impact you had on people. And this is not just a single case. So many people believe that they're cursed or they can get cursed from objects like this. So many people believe in the power of belief so much that they take these to heart, and you have stories like this. So I try to tell that story whenever I can, because I mean, it's heartbreaking, but it shows like you got to do your research. Don't succumb to belief, because it leads you down a bad path sometimes.
Well, and
So
that's so
you-
important about your work then, that you're able to show people that this isn't real, that you can
Right.
kind of help to undo some of that damage that has been done by charlatans or people who are just scamming people. I mean,
That's what
that's
keeps me going. You know,
Speaking of
that
that
explains
scamming,
it. I was going to
you know,
ask
yeah.
you,
yeah.
and now I know.
You know, like
Speaking
I
of
love
scamming people, you mentioned the museum, Kenny. Did you use the name?
the Zach Baggins Haunted
Yeah,
Museum.
that
Yes,
one. There's
that
some other
name.
stuff in there besides the big box.
Yeah, there's a few things in there. There's the demon chair. There's a Peggy the doll. What else did I write about?
The mirror, the mirror.
Mirror. Oh, the Bela Lugosi mirror. That was the first one that I actually wrote about because of that museum, taking that tour. And it was one of the things, like, we're on the tour and there's a mirror, and it alleged to be owned by Bela Lugosi, the great actor that played Dracula. So during the story, the guide tells us that Bela Lugosi would use this mirror to speak to his dead wife, and he would practice this scrying thing, this metaphysical thing called scrying, where you stare into a reflective surface and wait to get visions and messages and stuff like that. So I was curious after I heard that. I was like, all right, I'm curious. Let me look it up, because I've never looked it up. I don't know who he would be talking to. I find out that Bela Lugosi was married 5 times, and he died before all of them. So think about that.
So
None of
who
his
was he
wives
talking
died.
to?
So this really launched the investigation, because I was like, wait, where did this come from? Who's he talking to? So I dug more into it, found out that the mirror was actually it was left behind in an estate that was bought by a gentleman who was a big Bela Lugosi fan. And the mirror was left behind, and there was also a scrapbook of Bela Lugosi news clippings. So the new owner, I think, just assumed that it was part of Bela Lugosi's ownership or something like that. But I did title searches. I went through everything. I actually talked to the granddaughter of Bela Lugosi, and we went through all the addresses, and none of it matches up. So Mr. Lugosi never owned the house that this mirror was in. I talked to the was it grandniece that owned the mirror and donated the mirror. I talked to her a lot. We're now friends because I provided her with all the information, and that was like her family lore. Like, this mirror belonged to the great Bela Lugosi, and I gave her all the documentation and everything, and I felt bad because she was so crushed. She was like, this has been in our family forever. And this story was part of our family. And she's like, now it doesn't look like it's real. I'm like, well, I think your uncle kind of made it up. But she was really cool with it. We're still friends to this day. But that mirror, it used to be a prominent artifact in the museum. And when I went back a few months ago for a friend's birthday party, we went back and snuck in. That's a different story because I was banned from the museum.
Oh, wait, what? No, back up. You got to tell us that part.
Well, let me finish this first.
Okay.
We went through the tour, and it was a bunch of skeptics. Me, Susan Gerbic, Ben Radford, a lot of people. And we noticed that the mirror wasn't on the tour. It was on the VIP tour in the basement.
Oh.
And you had to pay another like $40 in order to go down and see it. And it wasn't covered. It didn't have any kind of curse along with it or anything, because there was like a curse. If you stared into the mirror, you could get sick and fall down and faint. So it was taken out of rotation, and it was just funny. But yeah, I was banned from the museum after I wrote about the mirror. And put the article out online. There was, Zach found out about it because a few of his employees at the time, make note of that, at the time, clicked on it and just like clicked like. When you like something, they click like, and then the following week, 5 women that worked for him as tour guides were fired. They were all fired, and the reason given was that they liked or shared that article.
Oh.
And I had the pleasure of meeting all 5 women at a meeting when I went out to Vegas one time, and they told me their stories. I got everything. But unfortunately, there's some legalities involved that I can't publish their stories yet.
You keep using that name, Zach. Who is this Zach person?
He's a douchebag. I don't like him. I'm sorry. He's a showman. That's it. He's a showman. He is not an investigator.
He has a ghost hunting show. Is that right?
Yes, he has a ghost hunting show called Ghost Adventures. It's been on forever. He's a marketing genius. I'll give him that. But as for being honest and thorough and legitimate, no, not at all.
I actually also have a silly experience with that person that I am not going to talk about, but yeah.
Yeah,
That.
he's not a nice guy. But yeah,
Huh.
and then the young ladies all told me, they're like, "You're not allowed back in the museum." And I was like, "What do you mean?" And they're like, "Your picture is hanging up in the lobby. You're not allowed in." Like,
Wait, your picture is hanging up in the lobby,
That's what
literally?
they told me. Like, if I tried to buy tickets, I would be rejected. That I wouldn't be able to get in.
So how did you get in?
Somebody else bought me tickets, and I just walked in. They didn't check my ID this time, and I stood next to the security booth. I think Ben Rafford has a picture of me standing next to the security booth, like. But no, they didn't check any ID, and I went right in. And Zach walked right by us, and I fumbled with my phone because I'm like, how cool would it be to get a selfie with him, and he doesn't even know I'm here? This is great. But he walked by too quick. I couldn't get it.
Did you have a COVID mask on so he couldn't recognize you?
I did because I didn't want to stand there and because we had to stand there for probably about an hour right outside the building, and I didn't want him to recognize. And Ben wore a mask, Susan wore a mask, most of us wore masks as we went in. But yeah, that would have been great.
Wow. I love it. I love that you went back after being banned with your picture on the wall and everything.
Oh,
That
hell
is
yeah.
the cherry on top. And you didn't get ratted out by the mirror or the ghosts or
Nobody.
anything.
None of the ghosts or spirits or any mediums or psychics warned him that I was coming.
I'm shocked.
Oh, yes.
I thought they knew things like that.
I did send him a picture of us in the lobby afterwards and thanked him for the tour. So, yeah.
You mentioned medium. That was my next question going to be. So, Mr. Biddle, how do you explain if they're ghosts or not dead people? How do all of these mediums all over the world talking to the dead people and getting them to answer them?
It's really easy. You can talk to. I can talk to a. This is Charlie right here. This is Charlie, not Leia back here, but this is Charlie. And Charlie says, "Rob is not as smart as you think you are." Okay. So
how does she know that?
Well, Charlie's a he. But Samantha though is now here, and she says that you don't have that bottle of rum that I gave you the first time we met.
Shut up, Samantha.
See?
She
Psychic.
knows.
I know. I'm obviously I'm talking to the dead, because how would I know that?
No other way.
No, it's not possible.
So psychics and mediums. Rob, you and I have talked about. We've actually done a talk together on this topic, and it's so easy to just bullshit your way through it. I do it without even trying sometimes,
because people want to believe.
They want to believe. And I see it. I went to a conference this last weekend, and just watching people say that they are psychic mediums, because it's never just one. They have to do both. They eventually do both, but they have signs.
By both you mean they're psychic, clairvoyant, sort of see the future.
So psychics, they see here and whatever the future or the past, where mediums talk to dead people, according to them. But I see
why would you need both? If you could just see and hear the past already, why do you need the ability to talk to dead people from the past? Couldn't you just see it yourself?
Well, it's more revenue. You get to charge more.
There's a financial incentive again?
There is. There is.
Huh.
We're talking you could charge $30, $40 for a 15-minute session. and that's cash.
Thomas John did a session with children, 8 children, and he charged them families $400 each.
Yep.
And
For what?
it was a combined 2 hours, but he blabbed on about just general stuff for most of it. And each person got maybe 10 minutes, $400.
Yeah.
Wow. And those kids are traumatized for life.
Yeah, well, each
All
one was with
6
a
of them are.
parent who clearly is a believer and probably talks to them about this anyway. But yes, they 6 to 12, I think that was the ages. Yes. And so,
Yeah.
and the amazing thing about this particular story is Susan Gerbic, the aforementioned, who may be a speaker for RfRx, by the way.
Yeah.
Um,
Rob, it's like you're psychic.
it is. Infiltrated this. There were only 8 people, and 2 of them were her plants, actors.
Wait, I
and-
thought you meant actual plants. I'm sorry.
They could have been, and the psychic Thomas John did not catch on. He did not catch on.
Right.
He just spouted nonsense stuff to them from like their emails and did not know that they were actors.
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, I do a lot when it comes to mediums. One of the tricks that I like doing, I go to like a psychic fair, and that is a big conference, and there's maybe 20, 30, 40 different mediums, psychics, all with their own little tables. And depending on how much money I have at the time, I will sit for like 5 or 6 of them. And I usually sit down, and one of the things that I do is I like to count how many questions they ask me. So I'll sit here like this and say, all right, I'm here for a reading. Can you get in touch with a loved one? You know, there is a particular loved one I want to talk to. So, you know, if we can get to them, and we'll talk, and they'll ask me questions like, oh, all right, so I'm seeing a father figure. So is it your father or grandfather, you know, great grandfather, something like that. And a very, very John Edward-esque that's going on. And as the questions are coming, I'm counting them. And I'm not just counting them in my head. Like, what you didn't realize is that the whole time I've been sitting here, I have this on my hand. And it's a counter. So you don't see it from the back because it's clear. It's usually like this, or I have my hands folded and I can count. It's got a little screen up there. Let me see if I can show this better. There you go. So it's got a screen, and it counts up every time I push the big button. So at the end of 15 minutes, I look at the counter and I have a conversation saying, well, you know, we had a reading, and I paid for you to talk to a loved one and give me messages from my loved one, but you asked me like 20 questions, like literally 20 to 25 questions in a 15-minute period. Like, that's a lot. Like, don't you think that's a lot of questions where I'm giving you the answer, or you want me to give you the answer? And when we say it nicely, they do just that. They're like, well, you know, they don't always talk to me. But I mean, that's one of the things that I establish in the beginning. And I try not to sound like a skeptic, but I always ask, like, what are you doing? Like, how do you see them? Do you see them? Do you hear them? Do you hear them like we're talking now? You know, and I get that clarification. So for the most part, they say, yes, I do hear them like you're talking to me right now.
Oh.
So when that comes up, it's like, oh, well, game on, because you should have all the answers. There should be no like, oh, I didn't hear that. What's that? You know, you should have the answers.
What did they say?
Well, yeah, like what was it? You know, what is their name? Give me their name. You know, give me their
I'll
full
bet
name.
it begins with a J.
Yeah.
Yeah, that doesn't work with me. I
Or
don't
it
like
could be
that.
an upside down J, like possibly like an F or a T,
Yeah.
or
Or maybe it's one of the letters near the J. I'm just trying to narrow it down.
It could be, yeah, because
Yeah,
it
could be.
J could be their last name,
Yeah.
or it could be, is it
Could be
June
their
or
best
July
friend.
that they were born in? Maybe it was their birth month. I
or
don't,
like the street they lived on could have a J in it or
yeah.
something.
And how
It's
about those
like-
numbers that always come out? Like I see the number 3 associated with you, Kenny, right?
Yeah,
Three or four.
3 or 4. Yeah. I mean, yeah, I had 3 drinks before the show.
Yeah,
I mean, does that
3
count?
and 4. Oh, it's amazing.
You must be psychic. No, I mean, there's techniques, and I'm sure you guys have heard this before, and I'm sure Rob has mentioned it in passing at least. You have your hot reading, you have your cold reading. Cold reading is pretty much guessing. It's looking at the person. It's trying to get clues about their life from just their clothing, their mannerisms. You can actually, when you talk to people, like when you say something that they identify with, you know, that they think, oh yeah, that's me. Everyone nods their head and they don't think about it. It's pretty much like when you're driving down the road and you don't think about keeping the car in the lane, you just do it. So when we're talking and I'm saying, you know, I'm seeing a father figure with some kind of thing, something happened like in the chest area, you know, some people are doing this and they start nodding their head. Or if it's wrong, they start scrunching up their face like, huh? I don't know what that means. And then I can shift tactics and say, oh, you know what? I think that might have cleared up beforehand. But maybe it went down lower, maybe in the back, you know, is that, and I'm looking for signs for you to say, yeah, you know, thumbs up. And then we can switch over to hot reading, which is when we have information beforehand.
Or you think they do when they, you know, they're really psychic, but you just like, I'm very good at like picking out where people are from. There's somebody with a square here, Adrian, I think. She feels very cold, like she's from up far north somewhere, like maybe Alaska, Canada, something like that, Siberia, but it's one of those cold places.
They're all right there in the neighborhood.
You know.
But hot reading, I mean, we did, when I did a talk with Rob, when we did our talk on psychics for the humanist group up in like North Jersey, or I think Red Bank, yeah. I did a hot reading on the group. I started spewing out facts, not just questions, not generalizations. I had the one guy as a cook on a naval ship and in front of a big pot. I knew the names of another guy's kids and how old they were and what instruments they played. And I'm going off, you know, all these facts, and they had no idea how I did it.
I didn't know how you did it. I didn't know you were going to do that.
I didn't tell anyone.
You're psychic. He's got to be psychic.
But it was to show them. And then I finally raised up a piece of paper that was all crumbled up, and it was a printout of their profiles from their own website.
Oh my goodness.
So I only read the information that they had put out there publicly, and I just had highlights and I read it off. And as long as you can say, like, you know, I'm seeing somebody in front of there's a big pot and it's almost like a paddle and he's stirring. This is on a ship. I'm smelling food too. And I look over, I'm like, I think it's this area right here. Is that you? Did you cook on a ship? And he's like, yeah. How'd you know that? So it's really simple. We don't realize how much information about ourselves is out there. You really don't. And sometimes you put it out there yourself and you forget about it. And it takes someone that has patience and doesn't mind tedious work like me, that I will comb through your Facebook page for years. I'll go back years and years and find information that I can use against you. I don't do that, but as an example, I can do that.
Yeah, but the psychic mediums who are famous for it don't do it either, because they're really psychic. Why would they have to do that?
Oh, well,
that's what their fans say. It's everything they ever say is out on Facebook or other social media that you can find too. But no, they didn't do it that way because they're really psychic.
And that's the fun part. Like if you can do a live, I mean, I wasn't part of the sting operation that this was, but that the one where Thomas John was with the kids, I obtained the video of it. And as the video's going, I'm watching it and I'm searching it in real time, not really real time, but in real time with the video. I'm searching it to see if I can find the answer before everyone else on the video does. And a lot of times, most of it, I was finding it before they did.
Oh yeah, and also he knew who the people were going to attend beforehand, so he didn't even have to do it in real time. Right.
And if you have an accomplice, I mean, I think I did that with Susan Gerbic myself. I was typing, and I have a screen in front of me where the camera's on, but I have a screen here and a screen here, so I have information all over these screens where I can just glance and be like, oh, I'm looking up into the spirit realm. And I can read something off of that screen and tell you. If I have an accomplice next to me, my wife, who usually sits off camera during my shows, she can sit right there and tap on the laptop, which you won't hear, and look up information and then send me a text.
Right. Thomas
at
John
least
has a habit of, well, his spirit realm contact comes from the lower right portion of his screen, which is coincidentally where Facebook Messenger comes up if you have a Windows machine, because he's always glancing over there right before he says something.
Yeah.
Or it's real spirits. One of those two things. You figure it out.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know. So that, yeah, psychics and mediums. And I have to say, like, I'm friendly with a lot of people that claim to be that, and none of them give me readings. They refuse to give me readings, and we both know why. But that's it. That's just the understanding. Like, they won't give me readings, and I pretty much don't sit. I don't try to sit for them because they just won't. They refuse to read for me.
It's your negative aura, right?
Yeah, which I keep trying to get a picture of, but doesn't work.
It's just orbs,
You know.
Orbs all around.
Orbs all around.
Well, on that note, we have a ton of questions. Is there anything else you want to cover before we go to Q&A?
I'm good.
All right, well, let's do it. Rob, do you want to kick us off with one of the questions from the chat?
Yeah, so I'm looking, well, the first one was actually answered about EVPs.
So it was.
All right, so someone wants an example of a ghost, in scare quotes, that turned out to be something ordinary. And, like, give an example of something that somebody really believed in and what you found the actual explanation for.
So let's see. The one
besides you coming out of the cornfield and you're not a ghost, but they thought you were a ghost.
There was a case way back. There was a place called Whispers Estate, and I believe it's in Indiana. And one of the big claims there was that you could hear a ghostly voice, the ghostly voice of a little girl singing lullabies. And you didn't need any equipment. You would just be there late at night and you would hear it. And it would be this echoey kind of little girl singing. And for years I had heard about it and I really wanted to get out there. Finally got invited by a podcast that was doing a live broadcast all night. They invited me out. I came out and I'm like, all right, great. I'm going to find this ghost. I can't wait. And for hours, couldn't figure it out. And then I noticed that the stairwell, because the main stairs, all wooden, really good architecture, all wooden, but there was a panel that was blocking the understair area. And the panel didn't match the rest of the woodwork. It was close, but it wasn't a match. And I was like, that's weird. I wonder, like, what's in there? I want to see what's in there. But I didn't want to take it apart. I didn't have permission to take anything apart. So I went to bed. I wake up the next morning and the other people that I was there with decided to take it apart. So we see a vent underneath, excuse me, underneath the stairwell. There's a big metal vent. And I'm like, all right, that's kind of weird. It goes down to a crawl space underneath the house. And I look at like another air conditioning vent that's in the floor about 4 feet away. And I realized that it's not connected to any ducts. It's actually going down to the crawl space. I'm like, all right, maybe something's here. So I go down to the basement, and the basement's one room. And then you have this crawl space that's probably just enough for me to slide through. So I crawl up into it under this old house, dirty. I have no idea what is living down there, but I crawl over to this hole under the steps and I come up on my knees and I start talking to everybody and my head's sticking out of it. And two of the people that were there had heard the singing prior. And they said, your voice right now is echoing just like the ghostly voice. And I was like, oh, I'm in this metal shaft here. Okay. So maybe the cause of it is here somewhere. So I get back down, I start crawling around and I kick one of the support beams and it moves. So I look back and I realize I didn't kick a support beam. I kicked a speaker, like a stereo speaker, which was about, I don't know, like 8 inches tall. And it was propped up against the pillar. And the line was run along the pillars all the way back down to the basement area where there were stereo equipment set up in a bin. So I found another speaker on the other side underneath the air vent. And I'm like, oh, here here it is. I dug a little bit more, and eventually that I don't have 100% proof that that was it, but I'm pretty sure that I found the cause of this ghostly voice, because there's more information that goes with that. It had changed hands, and when the new owner took over, no one has ever heard the voice again. And I was there a few months after the new owner had taken over, so nobody hears it anymore. But the speakers were set up perfectly. If they played, and they did play, they did work, because I checked them. I actually brought them up, took pictures of them, and hooked them in, so they did work. If you played any kind of spooky sounds like a Halloween CD, it would create exactly that sound. And you could sit in the living room, you would hear it. It would be clear as day to everyone, but it would have that echo. So that's one of my more fun cases.
Ooh, okay, that is interesting. Yeah, mighty suspicious, I would say.
Yeah. There was a lot of fighting. The new owner was really pissed off and on the phone the rest of the day with the previous owner, arguing back and forth. So I wasn't privy to that conversation, but I'm pretty sure it was colorful.
Yeah, it sounds like it. Speaking of colorful, another question we have from someone about a specific case is wondering if you are familiar with the brown lady photos and if you
Yes.
know of the explanation for that.
So funny. I mean, I might be able to give you can I give you a demonstration? I might.
Ooh.
See here. I'm looking. Oh yeah. So I don't know if you're going to be able to see this. I've been working on this. So the Brown Lady of Raymond Hall. It's one of the most famous ghost photos ever. If you've ever seen any kind of ghost book or ghost photo book, it's there. It's usually on the cover or something like that. And it's basically the shape of a woman in a gown that's on a grand staircase. It's a black and white photo. It's very famous. So I've looked into it several times. There's several possible explanations for it. There were two photographers. They were there taking pictures for Country Life magazine. And they were the one photographer, Indre Shira. He was there because he wanted to capture a ghost. He had heard ghost stories. He wanted to capture a ghost, but the lady of the hall who owned it refused to let him in. When he changed the story and said they were doing it for Country Life and taking pictures of the architecture, then she was okay with it. So they came in, he set up the camera, they set it up, and this is old film camera. It wasn't a plate camera, it was film, but it was still the same technology. So you had to remove the cap to expose the film, but beforehand you had to focus it. That's the big thing. You had to actually focus it and then load in the film. So it was a long process. And according to the story, one of them said, hurry up, take the picture, because he saw the ghost coming down the stairs. And the other one had no idea. So he pulls the trigger, snaps the photo, or takes the lens cap off, exposes it for like 7 or 8 seconds, and then puts the cap back on. And they argue, and then they go back home. They develop the film, and there's this ghost. So the problem is, Indre Shira, which is one of the photographers, and Captain Provan, he's the other photographer. Indre Shira, that's not his real name. That's his wife's name. But he was using his wife's name in order to, like a pseudonym. And I actually have, his wife's palmistry book.
Oh.
This is old. This is probably the most expensive book I've ever bought. It was like $80 just for this. But it's all about palmistry and her psychic visions and stuff like that.
Wow, she's proud of those visions.
Oh yeah. But there's the lady that owned the house. Her testimony in a book that she wrote was that the wife was there. So Indre and his wife was actually there. She was there, but nobody mentions her. So it possibly could be her that was set up on the stairs, but I don't think it was. I think what happened was that they took the picture of the stairwell, and Indre had it set up beforehand. And I think he had taken pictures of a statue of the Blessed Mary in one of the cemeteries, or the Virgin Mary. I forget which one they call it, but it's Mary like kind of with her hands like this, but she's standing on the earth. And it's a common statue. I think he took a picture of a white statue on a black background and then superimposed it. And what I can set up here for you, if I line this up right, and I don't know if this is going to work. Let me see if this is, nope. No, it's not going to, oh, no, it's not going to work. I have two negatives here. Oh, let me see if I can do this way. Because if I can shine a light through it, then you might be able to see it better. Here we go. Let me see. Oh, there we go. Can you see that?
Oh, it's a shape like a person figure.
There's a stairway
Yeah.
in the middle, and then there's like a figure on the stairs.
Yeah.
But the thing is, the trick is, it's two different negatives.
Aha.
I know that's horrible. This is a bad demonstration, but one negative is actually the stairway, and then the other negative of the figure is a statue about 6 to 7 inches tall.
Yeah, no, I could see it when you were shining the light
Okay.
behind it. Yeah, it looks like
I
a
wasn't
figure
sure.
on the staircase. Yeah.
But that's an exclusive because I haven't shown anyone that yet. So
RfRx exclusive, y'all.
there you go.
Saw it first here.
But I think that's how they did it. But again, I mean, it's so long ago. I can't be 100% sure, but I'm pretty sure that's how they did it.
Okay, I think we have one final question from the collections. And by the way, after this, if Kenny can hang around, we can open the mics and actually ask direct questions.
Awesome.
So don't go anywhere. So I think several people had questions along this line. Like, how many folks offering these services, claiming to be psychic, claiming to prove they're ghosts, are doing it as scams, and how many, like what percent really, they're ignorant or they're self-deceived?
I think there's a small percentage that are ignorant to what is going on. I think they really believe, and it's not just because of their own belief. I think it's reinforced by family and friends that constantly reassure, like, oh yeah, you got that right. Oh yes. And the confirmation bias is really high. They're all forgetting the misses. They're all remembering the hits. And it's like, hey, remember that time I picked out and I said it was your dad? Yeah, we remember that. That's cool. And that's what they go with. I think there's a larger percentage that know exactly what they're doing, and they're profiting off of it, and they know that. And some of these are the ones that go a step further. It's not just good for them to talk to friends and family. It's not good for them to just say, you know what, I'm pretty sure I talked to your dead loved ones, and they sit and they have a little card table. I'm talking about the people that keep going and say, well, you know what, I not only talk to dead people, but I've also solved missing person cases. I've solved murder cases. I've worked with police on these cases, and I've solved all these. And then when you ask them, they won't tell you what cases they solved. And that pisses me off so much, because I think it's direct exploitation of people and families, whether they actually did any of it or not. If they did try to help, they probably did the same cold reading techniques that they're used to doing, and it really didn't help. If they didn't, which I think, and I can't be sure, this is just my opinion, my observations, I think most of them just put it on their pamphlets or their banners so that it looks like they're more important and they can charge more money. That's what it really comes down to. Because I have not seen anyone tell me when I've asked, when I've specifically asked, like, what cases have you worked on? Can I verify it? All of them say no. They just won't give it up. And that tells me, I mean, one guy, I did do a case, and I wrote about this on Skeptical Inquirer. There was a gentleman that claimed to have worked on a murder case, and the attorney general, the Pennsylvania attorney general, had to reopen the murder case for him to take part, and he was specifically asked. And that's what got me involved, because I'm like, first of all, murder cases don't close. They don't close unless there's extraordinary circumstances. They do not close.
Unless they're solved.
Yeah, yeah. If they're solved, they're closed. But these were not solved. The second one was that when he was very confident that the attorney general himself had to open the case for him. I was like, no, that's not how it works. I'm pretty sure that's not how it works. So let me look into this. And I did. And I actually talked to, the big thing was I talked to the detective assigned to the case, the cold case, mind you. I spoke to the detective and confirmed that this psychic had no involvement whatsoever. Nothing. Was not part of the investigation that he claimed to have been. Did not offer any hints or advice or information. Did not contact didn't do anything. The detective never heard of him. That's literally what he said. I never heard of him. I said, all right, good. Here's his name. Here's his real name. Here's his address. He's telling everyone he solved this case.
It's almost like someone having a quote unquote ghost photograph and claiming that everyone has validated it.
Yeah.
And, yeah.
Horrible.
Who would do
Really
that?
similar.
All right.
All right. Well, fair enough. I think that's a good point to wrap up on and move into some concluding thoughts, and then definitely stick around for the hangout.
Absolutely.
Rob, before we go, I believe you have some further interviews with Kenny that you might like to share with us.
Yeah, let me share these links. I interviewed Kenny twice. One was in 2020, just as he had become a CSI fellow. And then that's a written article. And just last month, we did a video interview in advance of him speaking at this year's SciCon. And Kenny mentioned our joint talk at the Red Bank Humanist. And it's rather long, but if you got nothing else to do and you want to watch first me, I think it was I went first and then Kenny, or vice versa, I forget now. I talked about the harm in believing in psychics, and Kenny talked in some detail about his investigations of psychics and mediums. So there it is.
Outstanding. Yeah, well, thank you for sharing that. And thank you, Kenny, for sharing all of your experiences and insights with us. That was really interesting. I really enjoyed that. I had been looking forward to hearing this for a while.
Awesome. Awesome.
So thank you so much. And you're going to stick around for the hangout, I understand.
Yep.
So everybody stick around if you've got more questions for Kenny. And don't forget, this is not our last RfRx. We're going to be back here again next week. And we're going to have Jennifer Manlow with us next week to talk about religious trauma and the search for identity. And she's going to go over some of the traumatic effects of religious indoctrination on body, identity, self-worth, and particularly issues pertaining to body image. And we'll learn some things about how to find dignity and self-esteem post-breakup with religion. So a little bit of a change of topic there, but I think it's going to be very, very interesting. And she's got some really cool book recommendations for us.
Slightly heavier talk than this one.
It absolutely is. There's probably not going to be any ghosts or anything. There's no Scooby-Doo crossover with that one, but stay tuned. October is coming up, so it's going to be spooky season. We'll see what else we can get on the program along those lines. But Rob, do you want to tell people where they can find our previous recordings?
Yeah, I think I mentioned at the beginning, but some people joined late. These meetings on Monday all get recorded. Up to this point, we and the questions, but we don't do the hangout afterwards. But there are over 90 of them on our YouTube channel, and there's a link. And also, we have the audio versions of even more than that 94 number on our podcast right now, including Helen's, and she talks about Wicca. That was quite fascinating. Hasn't quite made it to video yet, but the audio version is available. So we have the podcast, we have a blog, and as I mentioned earlier, you can send any questions or comments about this whole RfRx stuff to rfrx@recoveringfromreligion.org.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, so be sure and check those out. And also, don't forget, you can follow us on the social medias. And that really helps us out, helps us, spread out, get the word to more people, helps other people find us. And there's also really good, interesting content on there. And we are on Facebook. We have a Facebook support group page. We're on Twitter, Instagram, even TikTok. Yes, you heard that right, TikTok. And I am dropping all of those links into the chat. So whichever one of those platforms you like to use, or all of the above, jump on there and find us and give us a like or a
I have one
subscribe.
of those TikToks, and I did not dance, and you can all thank me for that.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. We do appreciate that. I do kind of want to know what is on your TikTok, though. I'm gonna have to find you now. I'm looking for you. Okay. I also have one of those TikToks and do not dance on it. So surprise. So find us there. And don't forget to also sign up for our newsletter if you want some more news, recently added resources, new videos that have been published, things like that. Feel free to check us out, sign up for that. And as always, we also want to hear from all of you fine people. How did you find this experience? And how did you find us? Did you like the show? This feedback actually helps us with our programming, figure out what you're enjoying, what you would like to hear more of or less of. So we're going to go ahead and launch that feedback poll now. And if you have a chance, please take a few minutes to fill that out. And while you're doing that, I want to bring on our lovely and amazing Executive Director, Gayle Jordan, to give us some closing thoughts. Take it away, Gayle.
Thank you, Kara. What a delight to be here with you. Kenny, that was fabulous. It was fascinating. I was listening rapt from beginning to end. You know, I couldn't help from my perspective thinking about how our minds work and why this propensity to lean into these kinds of things also makes us vulnerable to the damage that religion can do. Of course, I'm always looking at it from the perspective of recovering from religion. So it's fascinating to look at it from all these angles. Thank you so much for joining us. And my daughter, the Troll Stomper there, will be visiting you in Vegas. She'll come to hear you live. And so you'll have to look for her. Thank you again for joining us. Those of you who have come tonight, thank you. Those of you who came for the first time, welcome. We hope you'll come back and visit with us. I think the hosts have done a great job of sharing the links and telling you all about what Recovering from Religion does. If you would like to have any more information, recoveringfromreligion.org, everything can be found at our website. We're doing some exciting things up to and including some international expansion. You're going to hear a lot about Australia in the days and weeks and months to come. So be listening for that. Thank you to our staff, to our folks who are Troll Stompers, and Nikki, who works our feed, and to our hosts, and to all the behind the scenes folks, Rob and everybody else who you may not see on screen, but put this together, the folks that put it out for a podcast and the folks that are working to put it on for YouTube. We are grateful for everyone, which leads me to my last point. If you would like to volunteer for Recovering from Religion, we are one big happy family. We have certainly cultivated positions where you don't have to just take phone calls or take chats. There's a lot of places that you can plug in. And if you are particularly gifted in one area or another, you can reach out directly to me if you'd like to, or you can click on the volunteer tab on recoveringfromreligion.org and join our team. If you're not in a position where you can do that, you can also join our team as the donor. There's an important role for you to play there as well. I'm not going to take up any more time. I hope you enjoy the hangout. Kenny, thank you again for being our guest, and I'll see y'all next week.